Yo, happy Tuesday. Welcome. It is just after 9:30 on a Tuesday, and you're hanging out with Johnny Gaz Live. Welcome to the stream. Welcome to our live. This is how we do it on Tuesday nights. It is the end of the year for the Detroit Lions officially, and we are going to talk about the Lions season. We're going to hit on the Week 18 victory over the Bears. We're going to have so much fun tonight. We are just going to do it big. I hope everyone's New Year's was fantastic. Hope you guys enjoyed it safely. Hope you guys had loved ones and friends around you. I hope everybody's off to a great start to 2026. Let's kick off this live. Let's have a great night. What do you say? How we doing? Scotty in early. How we doing, buddy? John Herman. Scotty, big time. Appreciate you, buddy. Robert, how you doing, buddy? Paul Jones, mile marker in the house. Robbie Murphy, Theo Woodward in the house. What up? Chantel Brooks, happy Tuesday. Scotty, we got a lot of people in the house ready to talk Lions football, ready to cap off the 2025-26 year for our Detroit Lions. We're going to have a great night. We are going to have a fantastic night. Let's kick it off with this. Going back to work after these 2 holiday weeks was very, very difficult. And I did work a couple days in between, that Monday, Tuesday, in between Christmas and New Year's. So I did work a little bit. But getting those long, drawn-out weekends, for Christmas and then for New Year's, it's a blessing. And I took advantage of it. I hope you guys did too. And I'm blessed to have the opportunity to take time off. So I don't take that for granted. But getting back to work Monday the 5th, and it wasn't just me, for a lot of people, was a disaster. So I hope you guys made it through the worst Monday of the year. No matter what your resolutions are, no matter what goals you set for yourself, just remember you can't accomplish them all in one day. And there's a lot of year ahead of you. So set your goals, moderation, confidence, keep going. Get up, show up. The next day will come. Thank you guys for showing up for another session of Johnny Gaz Live. I appreciate you. Happy Tuesday. Kenny G, how we doing, buddy? Good to see you in the chat. Paul Jones, we have our best opportunity to win a championship next season with the last place schedule and a healthy roster. It's a good way to kick it off, and that's sort of where we're going with today's live. I'm going to be asking you all night long your confidence level with this Lions team leaving this 2025 season. Now we're heading into 2026. Lions officially in their offseason mode. We're going to talk about a lot of their timelines, what's coming up, what they've done already. We have some breaking news already here that we're going to hit right up front. So we'll have a ton of conversation here, Paul. Thanks for kicking us off strong. Andy, what's up, brother? Kick it off, Chantel. That's what I'm talking about. Kick it off. Just kick it off, Theo goes, work? I'm retired in 2020. Congratulations. I'm glad you are officially out of the workforce. Congratulations on being retired. I am jealous, my man. I'm sure you earned it. If you're comfortable, Theo, tell us what you did for your career. I'd love to hear from you, buddy. And I'm glad you are in the chat today. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys every Tuesday night. Happy 2026. Cheers. Cheers, cheers, cheers. With that, with the gong, we have some breaking news. Let's kick it off tonight with some Lions breaking news. Earlier this afternoon, the Lions announced that they did actually fire offensive coordinator John Morton. We know that Dan Campbell took over play calling duties as of week 10 this year, and we have exhausted the conversation as far as where this Lions offense was when John Morton had it, what happened when Dan Campbell took over, and then what has happened since. And we'll touch on that again. But ultimately, the breaking news today is that the Lions have officially fired offensive coordinator John Morton. This coming from the Pride of Detroit website says John Morton's time as Detroit Lions offensive coordinator is one and done. According to several reports, Morton has been fired as the team's offensive coordinator after a very up and down 2025 season. While the Lions finished the season as the 5th highest scoring offense, it doesn't take a ton of research to realize the problems ran deeper than that statistically suggested. In particular, the run offense completely collapsed after one of the best years in franchise history. Good article from the Pride of Detroit. So Lions officially fire offensive coordinator John Morton. I can't say or sit here and tell you that that is any sort of surprise, in my opinion. I think we knew the Lions were moving on to a different play caller. At least that was my hope. Whether Dan Campbell kept it or they're looking on the outside, we knew that John Morton wasn't going to be that piece. I think the question was, would they keep him around in a different capacity? Well, clearly they are going to move on from John Morton. So again, not a major surprise, but it is breaking news. Chantel says, we're going to win. That's right. Hopefully with a new offense coordinator, it sounds like. Yeah, Morton is gone. Morton is gone. And already, again, according to the Pride of Detroit website, after the news of this firing, according to this site, it says the first Detroit Lions offensive coordinator candidate has emerged. The Detroit Lions search for new OC has begun. According to NFL Network's Ian Rappaport, former Lions quarterback David Blau is a candidate to fill the role left after John Morton's firing. David Blau. Let me say that again. David Blau. Only 2 years into his coaching career after retiring from playing after the 2023 season, he spent the last 2 seasons with Washington as the assistant quarterbacks coach, helping Jane Daniels emerge as a strong franchise player for them. Late in the 2025 season, Commanders quarterbacks coach Tavita Pritchard took the Stanford head coaching job, leaving Blau to serve as the interim quarterbacks coach for the rest of the season. So a couple questions to kick this off with this news, okay? Number one, are you surprised at all with the firing of John Morton? And number two, do you put any credence in the Lions then opening up this position for former quarterback and current quarterbacks coach for Washington, David Blau? Does that excite you in any way if that is the move that they ultimately make? So let's kick it off there. Let me know in the chat. I'd love to hear from you guys. Lions fire offensive coordinator John Morton. And according to the Pride of Detroit website, former quarterback David Blau emerging as a top candidate for the replacement job. I'd love to hear from you guys. Theo says, control systems work for the electric utility DTE Energy. Thank you for your service, my man. And I appreciate you being open and honest with us. Again, I'm happy for your retirement. Very much so. Paul says, do you see Brian Daboll becoming our new offensive coordinator? I kind of like David Blau. So I appreciate you hitting on David Blau. In my opinion, I would rather see the Lions go far outside. David Blau seems more comfort like the John Morton hiring was. That's just my initial opinion on this. But guys have to get opportunities. And, greatness could stem out of that. I don't know enough about David Blau's offensive coaching strategy to know if that's going to work here in Detroit. But my initial opinion on that is not a safe. That's a safe hire if they went that route. John Herman says, surprised they didn't fire John Morton midseason. I'm with you, but I think they had the respect to keep him around, and he liked being a part of their passing game coordination, apparently. Mile Marker, I appreciate you hanging around, buddy. Thank you so much for being in the chat. You the man. What's up, Millicent? How are you doing? We all know what happens when Millicent comes around. I don't think the gong hit. There it is. There it is. The gong went south for a second, Millicent. I'm sorry, but it's good to see you in the chat. Not surprised at all that Morton is gone. Andy says, no one is surprised by this. Can't regress this much without someone getting fired. I wouldn't be surprised if more follow. What do you think, man? Some pretty good head coaches got fired here, so you're right. Black Monday hit, as they say. I was not surprised by this, but I think the guy that will be in highest demand is going to be John Harbaugh. And apparently 7 teams already reached out to him immediately after his firing. Millicent says, I agree, Johnny. I would like to see someone else not directly connected to the Lions. So I'm glad you're with me there, Millicent. That's how I feel about it. I really do. Andy Cochran, how you doing, buddy? He says, not Blau. How about Kevin Stefanik? Yeah, I would much rather see that. There you have potentially an outside offensive mind that would bring a whole new blood to this, which is really what I think the Lions need, in my opinion, is a new mind, a new scheme, fresh life. We just something different. Robert, how you doing? But he says, Johnny Gaz Sports, just stay the hell away from Cliff Kingsbury. Yeah. I'll tell you what, I hope they don't go that route. I'm with you. But I also would rather have them go there than David Blau. That's just my initial thought. Let's let some other candidates kind of come to light. And as we get into the offseason, guys, I will keep you as updated as possible as more and more of this news comes out. So that's the breaking news as we kick off Johnny Gaz Live here this evening. Let's take one step back before we blow the year-end up review. Okay? Week 18. Chicago. Lions with what a lot of people would tell you nothing to play for. A depleted roster as far as the back end of their defense. Injuries all across their offensive line, and they were without their premier tackle, Penei Sewell, in this matchup. But the Lions come out with all the grit you expect. And Dan Campbell said it leading into this matchup. He wanted to get everything out of this team that he could, and I think they got that. And the Lions end up closing the season out in Chicago with a 19-16 victory, ending on a Jake Bates field goal to end the game. It was an exciting way to end the year, that's for sure. And we're going to talk about sort of what that meant or didn't mean. But in this game, we saw the Lions jump out to a 16-0 lead. You saw a little bit more rhythm offensively, although the rushing attack's still up and down, and you have to go back to that offensive line a little bit. But I thought overall, the offense was pretty good considering the state of the offensive line, and I thought they held up pretty well. Only 2 sacks on Jared Goff on the day. He was 27 of 42, 331, had the touchdown pass and the interception. But he was efficient again, and with that offensive line, I thought was good, especially in that situation in Chicago, because Chicago was also playing to win that football game, even though for 3 quarters it didn't look that way. But I have to say the hero of that game is Amon-Ra St. Brown, and that was a theme of the entire year, and we'll talk about that a little more in our year in review. But Amon-Ra St. Brown in Week 18, 11 receptions, 139 yards. He was the offense for the Lions there in spots. And you just got to give him so much credit, because as a captain, as a leader of this team, I mean, that's the type of guys, these core players that are going to carry you through to the future. And a performance like this, again, if you want to say it means nothing, that's fine. And record-wise, yes, it didn't mean anything. And you can make some arguments that a victory actually may hurt them next year in a sense of their draft pick, and scheduling could have played a part in this. And we'll talk about that. But the Lions came out firing. The defense, I thought, held up well. There were a couple spurts there, but ultimately when Dan Campbell and that play calling put the defense in a bad position late in that football game, Kelvin Shepard and that defense was able to come up with a stop, get the Lions the football back, and Jake Bates seals it. So let me know in chat, was St. Brown the MVP of this Bears game? I mean, I won't ask who it was because I think I know who it was. So can you confirm for me that St. Brown was the MVP of this game? Let me know if that's the case. If not, tell me who was. Who was the MVP in Week 18 against the Bears? John Herman says, I think Teddy Bridgewater deserves at least an interview. Interesting. Is he seeking offensive coordinator positions? I mean, is he taking that step up? I know he's a very successful high school coach, but I didn't know he was going to take John Tell says, don't worry about Montgomery, St. Brown, and the rest of the football team. I don't think, St. Brown's not going anywhere. First of all, he's an all-pro, and he's signed for many years. He's got a big contract. Montgomery is a different story. We're going to talk about him a little bit, but he might be a guy on the outside looking in. And it could be a few things. The fact they didn't really use him as much this year. They're obviously leaning on Gibbs more and more. He's getting a little bit older, and there's a contract situation to worry about for the Lions as far as cap space. So he might be a casualty there. But I like Monty. Theo says, Ravens OC Monken. He can bring the center with him. Linderbaum. Yeah, Tyler Linderbaum. Bring him on over. And that, I think, could be one of the bigger pieces of the offseason. And Linderbaum is a premier center that doesn't come available very often, and that could solve a lot of the Lions' problems, but they're going to have to pay for it. But, Theo, I like where your head's at, man. Miles says, I wanted that game, and we got it. Yes, we did. What up, Lupe? How we doing? Welcome to the chat. I think we should look at the OC from Navy. OC from Navy. I just wanted to confirm the current offensive coordinator for the Naval Academy football team is Drew Cronick. Okay. I'm never going to blow smoke at you guys. I don't know a whole bunch about Drew Cronick. And if Lupe, why don't you give us a little background? Tell us why you think he could be an OC candidate. I'd love to hear it. I love the outside perspective. I really do. Paul Jones, we just need to shore up that center position. I agree, and that's why we're talking Tyler Linderbaum, Paul, because if we don't go outside or go to a veteran, they're going to draft again. And can a drafted center be what the Lions need next year to be the winner? And that's really the big question. Milson says, what I loved about that win is that it showed the mindset of the players. We have so many players who are not only talented, but who truly love this game. I agree with you. I mean, and that Amon-Ra St. Brown performance was inspiring. The offensive line, I thought, played inspired football. Jared Goff. A lot of players on defense. Jack Campbell continues to just stack good games on top of good games. My favorite, JG to ARSB. Absolutely, brother. Absolutely, mile marker. We love that. Hopefully for many, many years to come. You guys are rolling with the chat. I really appreciate you guys. Paul says Jake Bates is the MVP. That's a good argument, Paul. I mean, without him, we're not knocking down that field goal. Millicent says, I have to admit that it felt good to shut Brady up with the blah, 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 blah of the Cardiac Bears and their fourth quarter comebacks. Tom Brady, man, he's polarizing. You know, I feel like some people either love him or you hate him. I like him as a color guy. I think he sounds like he's kind of even drunk in the booth sometimes, which I'm okay with the happy-go-lucky Tom Brady in there. But, yeah, he can get a little exhausting. MVP is a tie. Gibbs and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Okay. So, we're just talking Week 18, Millicent. We still think Gibbs there. I don't know. Yeah, you know, I mean, he didn't have a ton of rush yards, but the ground game did enough to where the play-action game worked. And then that route he ran, the angle route there, or the arrow route, I think they call it, for the touchdown, that was pretty sweet. So, I'm with you. St. Barnabas, MVP of the game. Agreed, Scotty. Honorable mention to J-Mo. He kept a couple critical drives alive. Millicent, great point. Great point, because I think J-Mo really took a step up this year. And that's kind of now with everything else sort of it's gotten pushed to the background a little bit. So yeah, he was huge in Week 18. That is underrated. I like that. Michelle in the house, how we doing? Says Goff was the MVP. He had to stand in there with that offensive line, knowing the Bears were going to come after him. I mean, you're right. He played well. I'm with you on Williams, Scotty. Lupe says, number one in all of college run game and average points per is about 34. And they did have a quarterback that ran, but mainly stayed in the pocket. All right. I love that, Lupe. Great. Dude, you always bring a good perspective. I appreciate you. So he had brought up offensive coordinator from Navy, Drew Cronick, as a potential replacement. We did find out earlier today that John Morton, the offensive coordinator for the Lions, was actually fired. So that's great information to get. Liam O'Connor says, Lions suck. Dang, man. Dang. How you going to do that to us like that, bro? What's your favorite team, Liam? Who do you like? The OC from Indiana, Shanahan, might be good also. Johnny, I like that. Paul Jones says, we need to draft a few referees. That might help. Paul, if we had a couple in the Lions' back pocket, that could help a little bit. Liam O'Connor says, what's your playoff picks? I like that, bud. You know what? I'm going to give you those at the end of the show, my man. I like that. We're going to do kind of a year-end review. We'll talk about the playoffs a little bit. I'll give you my picks, brother. Milson says, Gibbs fought hard for some yards without any clear holes open up for him. Yeah, I mean, I think we know the interior of the offensive line was really struggling. And even in Week 18, they really couldn't establish anything through the interior necessarily. I mean, Monty did some good things. And again, the rushing attack did enough. But I think what we had become used to in years past, it certainly wasn't that yet. But again, I'm with you, Millicent. I thought Gibbs fought hard. What's up, Lions Highlights? Says easy schedule next year. Good draft spot. If we can't make a playoff push next year, we might need a big change. I'm with you. The conversations next year at this time will be so much different if we were sitting in the same spot. We cannot have complacency this offseason. That's the one thing for me that we're going to expand on that big time, but I need to see the right change this offseason so that next year we're not talking those big sweeping changes, right? Detroit fan man, how you doing? Said, like Terry Risden is predicting more coaching moves. I'm thinking we'll see a 5th defensive line coach in 5 years under MCDC. You might get it, man. You might get it. We talked about that last week a little bit, but yeah, I'm with you. Liam says, LOL Lions. Give me more, Liam. Come on, man. You can do better. You can do better. I feel you on that. Who's your favorite player of all time? My favorite player of all time. Lions or outside Lions? I'll give you both. My favorite player of all time, Jerry Rice. That's like just like overarching, right? I like the position, like when he brought the position. I think he changed it, so I can lean there. My favorite Lion of all time, God dang, man. I mean, I haven't been asked that in a while. My favorite Lion, I don't want to say Barry Sanders. I feel stupid saying Barry Sanders, but like the truth, like you can't hide from that. You can't say that. That's what I'm saying. Michelle, I sat here and I'm like, I'm not going to say Barry. So I'm trying to come up with like, what is my second favorite Lion of all time? No, I'm with you. And obviously Kelvin's up there. Matt Stafford's up there, in my opinion. I don't know. There's so many. Robert Porcher, Johnny Morton. It's crazy. Kickalicious, yeah, man. Heck yeah. Do you think the D is big of a need this offseason? Hassanin should be coming back, and Muhammad was pretty good. I just think O-line and DBs are more important right now. But what do you think? They have to add to their defensive line. They do. There's got to be something from the outside or continuing to draft maybe some big dudes in the middle. I think they do need an edge. I hate to say, because you sound like a broken record, but the truth is, like, I've talked about the edge opposite Hutchinson for several off seasons. Al-Qadim Muhammad has to be re-signed or extended, or they got to figure out something with his contract. It sounds like he wants to get paid. So the Lions either pay him, but even if they do, they still need something. So I'm with you. Defensive edge or something across the defensive line needs to be a priority. I think offensive line is priority one. That play caller, obviously the offensive coordinator goes along with that. But then on the other side, I still think defensive edge and line is huge. They're probably going to need to replace a linebacker and then worry about that DB depth. Mile Marcus says, my favorite all time, Joe Montana. See, so like when I was thinking about it, that's where I go is to that team. Because when I grew up, I'm born in 85, and, I don't know, the Niners were dominating when I started my young years of watching football, along with obviously the Barry Sanders years and all that stuff when on the Lions side. But yeah, I'm with you. And Joe Montana to Jerry Rice was the thing. I mean, that's what we all grew. When I was a kid, that's what we grew up doing. If we were running back, we're Barry Sanders. If we're catching the ball, we're Jerry Rice. For a quarterback, we're Joe Montana. It's just what it was. Herman Moore. That's right, Paul. Andy says, man, Johnny, if we don't get a better one line, a new coordinator probably won't help much. Yeah, the O-line is key to this, right? I mean, some people would tell you that a paper bag could be the offensive coordinator with the offensive line we had in years past. I mean, I kind of disagree with that. I just think that ultimately the Dan Campbell offense has gotten stale. And I don't know if you want him long-term being your play caller. We've kind of established this here in the chat, but that's where I'm at with the Lions. So they have to have some kind of new offensive play caller, but you're right. The more important thing is that they shore up the O-line. Detroit fan man says, I'm still thinking tight end as a whole. Laporta and Wright are both not guaranteed week one, correct? No one else in that room at all got to draft a tight end. I agree with you. They got to draft somebody. They're going to draft a depth piece tight end, someone they're confident in. I think the long-term prognosis, is that the word? I'm a doctor, obviously. Sam Laporta, his back injury should be ready to go by training camp. Now, does that mean week one? Yeah, it's kind of questionable. So I'm with you, Detroit fan, man. They need to look at tight end as well. So let's get into our year-end review. You guys keep coming with the questions in the chat. I appreciate you getting involved early and often. Make sure if you have not already, slap that like button on the stream. It is honestly the best free way to help out the channel. Share it off to your feeds. Let's get some more people involved here. I appreciate you guys so much. Michael Hortzman, well, how you doing, buddy? Welcome to the chat. Says, I like to see Hutch be able to move freely and not always hand in the dirt. I feel like, Michael, they started to do that more in the last 2 games when they weren't doing that before. Like Shep had almost just said, okay, I'm throwing my stubborn scheme to the wind here, and they're going to go for it. So we actually did see a little more of that, and I thought he was effective when he was moved around. So, Michael, I'm with you. It's a great point, and I want to see more of that next year. What we need is that grit mentality back. I feel like we started losing games and lost our identity. Lions highlights, I'm with you, man. You felt like a little semblance of that came back in week 18, but then you're like, well, where was it all year long? Dan Campbell, even in the press conference following week 18, kind of said we need to get that fire back, I think was his quote. And I'm glad he said it, because it tells you maybe there was a little complacency there. 15-2, a number 1 seed. You got injuries. You had injuries last year and they overcame it. You got more injuries this year and you think, okay, we'll just roll. It didn't work that way. It did not work that way this year. Johnny, I asked this to Lions YouTubers. As we asked Lions to improve, is there any area that you feel you need to improve? I'm trying to educate myself more on play info, better understanding the calls. Is there any area that you feel like, do I need to improve? Like in my YouTube career? Or you're saying like the Lions, 2 areas need to improve? I'll give you both. I'll tell you what, I'll give you both. For the Lions, the 2 areas that they need to improve the most, number 1 is the offensive line. That is clearly their biggest area of need, is the offensive line. And I will just jump right back to the defensive line. I think it's even more important than their defensive back situation. I think Brian Branch will rehab his Achilles. I think it's going to be a later season addition, but when he does come back, I think he'll be back. The word on Kirby Joseph is they're going to let him rest. They're going to rehab as much as possible. And if you can get those safeties back in the rotation, it solves a lot of the other problems. So offensive line, defensive line. I mean, that's the easy answer, truthfully. Now, as a YouTuber, I'll give it to you personally. This is what I have to change. I need to add a second layer to Johnny Gaz Sports. So it can't just be Lions content all the time. So I either need to add, and I've talked about this, is adding a second Detroit team to the mix, Pistons and Tigers potentially, or maybe even a second NFL team. And so that's one area I need to improve, is expand the reach of Johnny Gaz Sports. I think the other thing is I need to be more comfortable making content that's just personally me sitting here talking to you guys. I think I do a pretty good job in producing shorts and putting out things that look good, but sometimes I find myself going through the motion of that so that it just looks good, and then I take a step back and go, did I really say exactly what I meant to say? And when I'm with you guys here live, it seems to come out even better. That's why I love these sessions so much, because I feel like I can be my true self with you. So I would say maybe putting more of my true self into the short form content. That's real. You guys are rolling with the chat. I appreciate you. Paul says, with all the holes on the O-line and Dan taking over play calling, they still finished with the top 5 offense. Here's the issue, Paul. The thing is, they beat up on bad teams. They seem to get big explosive plays and big yardage days in small spurts. But those big yardage days, those statistical days, threw the whole thing off and kind of has this statistical anomaly now happening in 2025. It's rare that a top 5 offense misses the playoffs. You know, I cannot wait to see what Hassanin can do opposite Hutch. I agree with you, Millicent. We got to get him in the rotation. It's unfortunate he had the injury concerns this year, but next year we'll see what he can do. Paul says, if we have a decent center and a few healthy safeties, we win a few more games. That is 100% accurate. What up, Trim? How you doing, buddy? Good to see you, man. Always good to have Trim around. Lupe, always good. I appreciate you, man. Thank you for the question. Keep them rolling. I'll always give you honest answers. Thank you, buddy. Trim, you're hilarious, brother. You are hilarious. I'd like to see some more statistical data on that, to be honest with you. So I can't claim that to be accurate, but for Trim, it's working. So go for it. Michael says the D-line put a lot of pressure on QBs, but always short of couldn't complete the sack. That's our That put our CBs on an island too long, and our starters were banged up. Yeah, man, that's a perfect way to describe it. When you can't get home to the quarterback, like in those situations for Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Caleb Williams are extending plays, you're going to hurt your depth in the secondary who's already covering for you. So, Michael, that's a great point. Theo says, veteran center, pass rusher, bigger secondary help for sure. What up, Lions? Highlights again. He says, I just subbed, so never really seen your channel, but if you don't already, you could make longer videos about certain topics specifically, especially in the offseason when people just want to see news. I'm with you, Lions. I mean, I was making a lot of long-form content, but to be real honest with you, not a lot of people were watching them. That's just the truth. Not a lot of people were clicking on them, and for as much effort as I put into making the long-form videos, I mean, we're talking hours of time, and it's just me. I do all my own editing. Everything's done here. This is all just solo. It became difficult to put in all that time and see little return. But in the offseason, there will be more long forms. I like to do a lot of player profiles as Lions add different players. I really like to dive into that. We'll kind of break down offense, defensive schemes, the changes that they'll add. So you will definitely see more long form in the future. I appreciate the input. I really do. Milson says, I love Decker Glasgow, but I really don't want to see them back. I don't know if they're going to come back. I think they're both retiring. That's the vibe I get from them. And regardless, the Lions need to take that as move on. Find other talent. Draft to replace. Don't wait. Don't let Ragnow situation happen all over again. Miles says, love the shorts. Fits my schedule better. Miles, that's the thing. And I think in the Lions space, that's what I found is like more people want shorter content. So I hear that a little more often. But the truth is more growth is in the longer form. So like there's benefits to both. I want to do both. I really do. But I want to make sure that it means something. We have to make Davenport a priority re-sign. I don't know, Trim. I'm thinking you're joking there, to be honest with you. That's got to be a joke. Andy says, dude, I've been following you all season. You're doing great. What are we going to do about draft? Thank you, buddy. I appreciate that very much. What are we going to do about drafting replacement for Goff? I think a great quarterback. But we're going to need to make a move for the future. First of all, they need a backup for sure. Like going to next season, I think they need to kind of shore up their backup situation. Kyle Allen still hanging around, but what do they do there? And do they look to the future in the draft? Do they like a guy enough to take a shot? And I think ultimately they're going to have to restructure Jared Goff too, right? Because he's got a huge balloon payment coming up in his contract, $70 million, I believe, owed in 2026. So they got to figure that out. They got to restructure, and that probably means extending him, meaning more Jared Goff here in Detroit. Yeah, Detroit family to play Rory. That's what Davenport could do for us. They could suit him up in Rory's position. Now, he'd probably hurt himself there too, though. He'd be out for the year. We'd find out like, oh, torn ACL. He fell on his way out during the first intros. For sure. So again, let's look back on this season. Let's really kind of recap this for the Lions. Starting off the year in Green Bay, they had that loss 27-13. That was a tough loss to take, to see, to feel. But I think it sort of set the tone for what the true big picture issues were with this Lions team. Let's go all the way back to Lambeau. Try to go all the way back there. And just remember that football game. The offensive line struggled. That was the Micah Parsons sort of celebratory game. That was the first, week one after the trade. It was very soon after the trade. You didn't know how much he was going to play. That defense played one of the best games of their year with that motivation behind them. And they're at home. A lot of things in the Green Bay Packers' favor. And they buried the Lions that day, 27-13. And it really tested the confidence level right there. But at that point, the Lions sort of got back to form quickly. And I think they caught the Chicago Bears in week 2 at the perfect time in the new Ben Johnson era, where they were still trying to figure out who they were, what they were. Could their new offensive line come together? What would that defense be? Whoa, Millicent. Holy smokes. Holy smokes. At the bottom of my heart, that means so much to me. A $20 dono from Millicent. Appreciate that so much. Never required, always appreciated. Appreciate you being around the chat. Always, you are the gong princess of Johnny Gaz Sports, and I hope you don't take offense to that. I mean that with all due respect. Thank you so much, Millicent, honestly. Johnny Big G in the house, Crosby, and like you said, better DBs, backups. You want Max Crosby? I hear a lot of that, and he's not very happy with the Vegas, so we'll see. Mile Mark says, I'm all in with JG. I appreciate that, but I think you meant Jared Goff. But I'm going to take that as Johnny Gaz. Michael says, if they restructure Goff, it goes $40 million cap space. They got to do it, Michael. That's too much cap space to give away this year. They need it because they got to bring in outside players or, they got to figure it out. That would help them big time. Thank you, Millicent. Again, I appreciate you so much. Good looking out, Millie, for sure. That was a long list of expiring contracts in Detroit. Did I miss the official J Gaz guest projection list presentation of who will resign? No, Detroit fan, man. We have not done that yet. That I'm thinking will be in some content coming up over the next couple days. I do want to go through the current free agent list. There's already been some re-signings, some of the practice squad players. So we'll get into all of that. Trying not to rush too much at once here. We're going to have a long off season. We still got the playoffs, wildcard weekends coming up. I'm going to have, predictions and things of that nature for that as well. So there's going to be a lot of football along with the Lions stuff. The gong makes me smile. Thanks, Millicent. I appreciate you. You make me smile today. Thank you. Thank you so much. So going back to year-end review, Lions then catch the Bears at the right time in week 2, a 52-21 drubbing of Ben Johnson and the Bears there. They then reel off 3 more victories at Baltimore, home versus the Browns, and then at Cincinnati. We know what happened when they go to Kansas City. It was a primetime game against the Chiefs. Refs tend to get involved. I thought the Lions offense then really started to show some inconsistencies there. Lions lose that football game 30-17, but at that point they're sitting at 4-2 in a really good spot. They then have the Buccaneers, and the defense puts on a miraculous performance because remember, they were hurt in the secondary in that game. Kelvin Shepard's defense kind of has that first stamp on 2025 where they get that victory against the Buccaneers 24-9. That brings the Lions to 5-2 at that point. But the Lions would not get a back-to-back victory past that point. They would go win-loss, win-loss, win-loss all the way through the Cowboy game. And things then started to fall off the rails. But just going back to it, the Lions then inconspicuously lose at home to the Vikings 27-24. And to me, that might be one of the most pivotal losses of the season. Because if you think about it, guys, and I know some things could have been different week 18 if things shook out differently, but the Lions really only needed one more win to potentially have a wild card spot. And losing both games to the Vikings was huge, but I think that first one ultimately set the wheels on fire to a certain extent. That, to me, was one of their worst losses of the season, 27-24 at home against the Vikings. Dan Campbell then decides to take over the play calling at that point because of all the inconsistency. It was clear the offensive line wasn't going to be the same. And against the Commanders, Dan Campbell actually has some success. However, the Commanders' defense was not anything to write home about. So Lions win that football game 44-22. Then the big matchup of the season happens, Lions-Eagles. But the Lions' offense falls on their face in that matchup. However, the defense plays well against an up-and-down Eagles team. 16-9, the Lions lose that football game. A weird one to the Giants. The Lions win at home 34-27. Another loss to the Packers. That win against the Cowboys. And then at that point, it kind of became must-win central. Right? Because the Lions had to get victories on the Rams, the Steelers, or the Vikings to have some way of getting into the playoffs, and they were not able to get it done in any one of those football games. They go back-to-back-to-back losses at LA, home against the Steelers, and at the Vikings in week 17. So that ultimately took the Lions out of playoff contention altogether. We just talked about the week 18 victory against the Bears, so we won't dive into that one too much. But I will ask, win against the Bears week 18, Do we take more out of that Week 18 victory because it was against the Bears, because it didn't mean anything schedule-wise, standings-wise for the Lions? What is that victory against the Bears, truly? Michael Horsman says, I heard it with a few restructures, we could have $118 million in cap. I've heard that. I've seen 100, 120 million, depending on who and how they restructure. The Goff one is the big one. Bills Broncos Super Bowl, possible, Trim. I like that. It'd be interesting. Be a good watch. What's up, Brian Brady? Good to see you, man. Says, we better not hire David Blau. I will go on vacation as a Lions fan until he's gone. Stop hiring nobodies. Yeah, I agree with you. He is a nobody now, and you got to find your way there. But I agree with you. David Blau would not be the hire I'm looking for. That's not a splash hire. It's not an outside hire. That's a safe hire, and I don't think it gives the Lions the result they're looking for. So I'm with you. Theo says, need interior and edge rush upgrade. Agreed, brother. Agreed. Millicent says, I know that MCDC has said it a lot, but it's true. There were multiple games where our boys were just a player or two away. It's true. It's true. I mean, if you think about it, the Vikings lost there, which again, it's kind of inexcusable, but they were a player or two away. Eagles game, same thing. That Packers loss, same thing. Rams, Steelers, all of those losses, one-score games that could have been tilted one way or another. But that's why offensive play calling means so much. That's why your offensive line obviously is so important. Jared Goff's connection with the offensive line, the play action, everything that means to their offensive scheme. So that really hurt them. She says, when we get our trenches right in the offseason, we will see more complementary football. That's really what it is. It's about reinvesting more and more into their trenches. And I would say being okay with bringing in veteran talent from the outside. If you're really looking to make the next year splash, to come back in 2026 with a vengeance, they have to be okay looking on the outside. So the offense as a whole, I thought just too inconsistent. And it starts with that offensive line. Everything kind of stemmed from there. It hurt the running game, and everything they tried to do on the interior just didn't work. And whether that was John Morton calling plays or Dan Campbell calling plays, it was a problem. I thought Jared Goff played well through all of that. And I will sit here today and still tell you that Jared Goff is not the problem for the Detroit Lions. And I'm okay and I'm comfortable with him being the quarterback for several years down the road. One, because I think he can win a Super Bowl, and I think he can be elite in the right scenario. And the other thing is, the grass is always greener on the other side. I just don't know who that other quarterback is that the Lions are bringing in here, or do I have faith that they're going to draft a quarterback that's going to bring them a Super Bowl sooner than later? So I am much more comfortable with Jared Goff at the helm, and I thought he played well this year through it all. The running game needed more balance. They lost their 1-2 punch with Sonic and Knuckles that just really didn't exist this year. It turned more into the Jahmyr Gibbs show, and even that was too few and far between. The explosives were there, but only in spurts, and really only came out during games that didn't matter. In the end, they really ended up, the Lions, losing to all of the playoff-bound teams outside of Chicago on their schedule. Amon-Ra St. Brown remains elite. I think he was playing through injuries this year, and I thought was inspiring. He had some drops issues, but again, I think that's due to some injury concerns, and I just think he is going to be your leader for the foreseeable future. He already was, and he will continue to be. And Week 18 sort of just reinvigorates that thought for me. But the offense to me is all about the offensive line. Can the Lions add enough talent? Are they willing to pull the trigger on a free agent center? Or are they to continue to stack up on the draft? A center, a tackle, I think is priority. Fixing the offensive line is priority 1. Finding that new offensive mind is priority 2. Defensively, I think they started off strong. I think with those performances against the Buccaneers, you saw it against the Eagles. even towards the end of the season. You saw things that you liked on the defense with Kelvin Shepard. So I don't think they're in any need of replacing their defensive coordinator. I'm going to chalk some of the inconsistencies up to the injury problem they're still having and the fact that he is a new coordinator. And I know the Lions like him. Dan Campbell really likes him. They've already moved on from their offensive coordinator with the firing of John Morton. We heard that earlier today. So I think that Shep is safe in his position, but we need to see progressive improvements again in 2026. This year, I thought that pressure was still there, but we talked about how they still were not able to get home. They did have 2 double-digit sack players on their team, which is impressive considering really how the defense looked all year long. But I guess the argument is right there, is that those sacks, again, came too few and far between. And in spurts with Al-Qadim Muhammad, where when maybe you really needed a dominant second pass rusher, he didn't show up. And that's not necessarily Al-Qadim Muhammad's fault, but the Lions need to find something else to add to that front seven. Obviously, the secondary depleted with their 2 safeties. When you lose an all-pro, you lose pro bowlers, and Brian Branch was the jackknife of that defense, or the Swiss Army knife of that defense. It is difficult to make up for that. And you got great performance out of Jack Campbell all year long, leading this team in tackles, all-pro type year, pro bowler for the first time. So you got to feel good about what's happening with the linebackers. You think we're probably losing Anzalone, and I've seen that a couple times in chat. Michelle, Jill, how you doing? I appreciate you. Glad to see you back. Appreciate you, Jill. Yeah, I think Anzalone probably is not coming back, so you're going to save a little cap space there, and ultimately you might be looking for a young linebacker to replace him, but you feel very good about Jack Campbell sort of taking the reins with the leadership part of that defense. Yeah, Andy, Goff not the problem. The truth is he's had bad games in big moments, and you can't mask that, but he's gotten us there. And I trust that he can work through those bad moments, and I want to put him back in those situations. So he's not the problem. Trim says there are so many possibilities. I hope BH is aggressive in free agency and or the trade market. Yes, I agree with you. He's got to get more just willing to pull the trigger. That's what I want. I think they've been decently aggressive. Just go get it. Go make it happen. No complacency this offseason. Millicent, you bring up a fantastic point. Brad Holmes speaking on Thursday. That might be the most exciting press conference of the entire offseason. Do not miss it. And I should have some content coming off of that press conference. So before we move forward, I'd love to hear from you guys in chat. Let me know who were the offensive MVP and defensive MVP for the Detroit Lions in 2025. Who was the offensive MVP and the defensive MVP in 2025 for the Detroit Lions? Let me know in the chat. This is the whole year. Year-end review for the Detroit Lions. I'd love to hear from you guys. MVP offensively and defensively. Hit the wrong button, and then we got the bongos. So you're welcome. We got a little bongos worked in today. You're welcome. So coming out of 2025-26, what did this all mean? What went wrong? We talked about that. We hit on what went wrong offensively, what went wrong defensively. But what does this all mean? Early promise, late collapse. Some ugly losses in there, of course. Inconsistent rushing attack. Some have told me this was a collapse. I've heard that. Needs to be a rebuild. I've actually heard that from fans. Others have told me this is just bad luck. This is an injury thing. This is still a referee thing. I've heard that a lot. But what is it? What does it truly mean for the Lions? And that's where we're at as far as the confidence level. Detroit fan man says Gibbs for offensive MVP, Jack Campbell defensive MVP. Good choices there. Millicent says Goff. On the offense, Jack Campbell on the defense. Theo says ARSB and Captain Jack. Jill says Jack Campbell and Aiden Hutchinson. Offense, you have to give me some Amon-Ra. All right, I like that. Trim, Goff, or Gibbs, and then Hutch or Captain Jack. John Herman says Goff's first games came when the O-line couldn't even slow down the pass rush. Yeah, you're right. You're right. I mean, I guess the argument on the other side is you'd love to have a quarterback who doesn't need to necessarily have a dominant O-line or can overcome it in some cases. But look, that's not where I'm at with it. Mile Marcus says the defensive MVP was Sewell. He carried the load a long time, did pretty darn well. I don't know if I read that right. I'm assuming your offensive MVP meant Sewell. Millicent says offensively waiting to use J-Mo was a huge mistake. That was a John Morton thing, I believe, and that's part of the issue. I think Dan Campbell, the rest of the offense didn't like the way they were being utilized, some of the talent, and I think that was a big part of it. Yeah, I got you, Mile Marker. No worries, buddy. What does it mean? 9-8 isn't good enough. Detroit family, and that's it. That's why I asked the question. What does it mean? I mean, really, what does it mean for the Lions and the organization? I mean, that's really the telltale. You know, so to me, the biggest offseason challenge for Dan is going to be kind of self-reflection, looking at their current situation, and both him and Brad Holmes, because I think there's some kind of built-in stubbornness, maybe some arrogance, as I've heard it described, where the things that they've been doing, they had been working so well to this point, and an offseason doesn't necessarily mean that your program has completely fallen off. But I think there's some very identifiable things that we've even talked about here today that I think the Lions will notice and should hopefully make the right moves to get this going in the right direction. But I think ultimately Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes, the entire organization needs to look from within. And he kind of talked about that in his press conference earlier this week, where they need that fire back. They need that fire back. You know, the win in Chicago did lock in their draft spot. 17. Lions will be picking 17 in the upcoming NFL draft. I think some projections had said that if they had lost to Chicago and some other things played out, they could have been picking as high as 13. So losing a few draft positions there puts the Lions in a situation where you might have to make some moves for the player you want, depending on who they're going after. I think a lot of questions still remain around the injury situation. And I would say the safeties may be the biggest concerns, because you don't know how quickly Brian Branch is coming back. You hope you'll get him 100% back on the Achilles, but the truth is that it's definitely not week one, and it may even be closer to, like, let's say Thanksgiving. Does that carry a huge effect in the next year? And with Kirby, it's a knee problem that they're not willing to operate on. So is enough rest and rehab good thing for him to hit the ground running next year? If they can get those safeties back, they're in a much better position. But ultimately, you still have those injury questions. Offseason priorities, offensive line depth, pass rush health, rhythm offensively. That's what you're looking for. Jill says, I agree with John about Goff. I'm with you there, Jill. How about we start a GoFundMe for the rest retirement and long-term healthcare fund? No, Theo. Well, Theo, I know we kind of talk in jest about it, but the truth is, like, they got to figure out something. But I don't know if the NFL is going to ever be willing to do it. They don't want to reorganize that system because they can control it. And that's a different topic for a different day. I'm not going to dive into that, but it's just a fun way to look at it. Jill says, I was glad to see them go out with a win in Chicago. I think a lot of us were, Jill. I think, we can paint this in a negative light if you want. If you want to sit here and say, oh, the Lions should have gone out there win, they shouldn't have played any starters, that was stupid. They hurt their draft position. They potentially could have hurt their schedule for next year. There's a lot of arguments that I've heard and can be made. But we know the Dan Campbell system. We know how he operates. He was not going to go into Chicago and not go at it 110%. That's exactly what they did. To expect anything less, I think, would have been stupid. Trim says, I'm very concerned about the health of those safeties. I'm with you, man. Millicent says, from a personal standpoint, we need a beast at center and a beast to match Hutch on the opposite side. Those two things alone will bring some cohesiveness and grit to the trenches. Tyler Linderbaum. I'll say it again. Tyler Linderbaum. It's going to cost some money, but if they could get him on this line as the center, maybe shift Penei Sewell to the left side once Decker retires and then draft your tackle of the future, then I think you're in a great spot. There's opportunities for it. Trim, that's exactly what I'm talking about. We're on the same page, buddy. That's where we're at. That's where we're at. So I put out a short this morning talking about why you should be confident in the Lions moving forward. And I had a lot of good reasons for that. So I'm going to hit on that here in just a minute, but I want to look at both angles to this. And that was part of why I put out the short. Part 2 will be out tomorrow. But we were talking about maybe why you shouldn't be confident in the Lions moving forward. A 9-8 finish this year after a 12-5 and a number 1 seed. Clear offensive rhythm issues, cohesiveness. So you're kind of left wondering, can they recover from this off season? Can they recover from this down year? Is this recoverable? So I wanted to get into why maybe you shouldn't be confident in the Lions moving forward. And the first thing is that offensive line. We talked about the struggles they had, but now going into this offseason, you're potentially losing your left tackle, Taylor Decker, and the center you did have, Graham Glasgow, on an already depleted interior. So now you're either having to shift Penei Sewell over and draft more replacements, or you're having to look on the outside. And does the organization have the capability of revamping this offensive line in this offseason to make a difference for 2026? Finding the new offensive play caller is much easier said than done. Saying they want a new mind, a new direction, a new scheme is easy from my perspective. But putting that into action from the Lions' perspective is much different. The Lions have shown an inability to want to look on the outside. They've seemed to want to make the comfort hire. They just lost offensive coordinator John Morton, and the word on the street is they're already considering former quarterback David Blau. Does that already solidify the fact that they're not willing to look on the outside and bring in a new offensive mind? Many will point to Jared Goff as the quarterback being the true issue for this team. He's not mobile. He's not able to operate when the conditions around him aren't perfect. He's not elite. He's not able to win the big game. He gets shaken in pressure. I think there's a lot of validity to those arguments. And will the Lions be able to do enough to insulate Jared Goff, restructure his big contract? Or would they ever be willing to move on from Jared Goff to take that next step? Cap issues and unwillingness to utilize free agency from the outside looking in. These are all reasons why you may not have confidence in the Lions heading into 2026. The stubbornness and the arrogance that's shown in their offensive scheme, defensive scheme, and the overall way that they do business may come back to haunt them. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Can the Lions recover from this down year in 2025? And tell me why you have confidence in the Lions moving forward. What's up, 313? It says an intelligent mind would fire Campbell and get Harbaugh ASAP. Well, that is not going to happen. I don't I don't disregard your thought, 313. Certainly, I love John Harbaugh. I wish they could figure out a way to get him here, but the organization is not moving on from Dan Campbell, and I think he's going to get an offer to be a head coach elsewhere. That's just the truth. It seems like he's already gotten offers. Milson says, yes, please open the wallet, get him here. Theo says, I saw an article that talked about Meeks bulking up and moving to tight end. I've heard that too. I thought they were going to maybe work him in the tight end when Laporta went out, but maybe that's why they didn't do that right away, because they need somebody with a little more bulk that can get a little bit more involved in their blocking schemes. Trim says, BH better not let us down. That's what we're looking for, man. We need to see change. We need to see actual progressive change. Not hanging on to what you've been doing, not relying on injured pieces to come back, not doing the safe thing this year. And that doesn't mean blowing it all up. That doesn't mean F them picks. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. It's about being smart with what you have, your resources, your assets, and being okay thinking outside the box this offseason. Add the piece or pieces necessary to get over the hump for 2026. What's up, Jody? How you doing? Welcome to the chat. Good to see you. Don't Know Grit is in the house. What's up, my guy? Mahogany, Ratledge, Frazier. If that's your interior, am I confident? Great question. And let me say this. First of all, everybody in the chat, make sure if you use TikTok, go check out @Don'tKnowGrit. It looks like you're also on YouTube, brother. And I apologize if I have not been subscribed to you yet. I will do that right now. Make sure to go subscribe. Puts out great content every day. Love going back and forth with you, my man. I appreciate you getting involved in the chat. Yes, Mahogany, Ratledge, Frazier, if that's your interior, are you confident? I would say no. Not heading into next year. That would not give me the confidence to say we've done enough to fix it for next year. Now, I would say that I'd be okay with it on a long-term play, you know? And if that's all they have available to them, then I hope that they've at least solidified the tackles. Let's say that. I wouldn't feel confident necessarily in the interior unless they've added a tackle, you know, and kind of shored everything else up. Otherwise, Don't Know Grit. I need to see them bring in a piece, a center, like the center they want. And I know Linderbaum's out there. They may not make that move, but then go draft somebody. I don't know. 316 says, oh, hey, great point, 313. Pistons fired Carlisle and won a ship. Will same old Lions pull the trigger and fire Campbell? I mean, look, that is a great example, right? Because I think did that Pistons team lead the league in wins the year before they fired Carlisle, right? And then brought in Larry Brown. Great era of Pistons basketball. Thank you for bringing that up also. John Herman says, Brad has to cook up a good recipe in the offseason, and we will be back. I'm with you. Millicent says, biggest advantage that we have as a youth, most of our players. I agree. Don't Know Grit says, Blau was a better coach than player even when he was a player. You're right. Look, that scares me. Don't Know Grit. We talked about that a little bit earlier. I don't, that's a safe hire. And again, maybe the guy's a genius. And if he turns out to be great, then I'll eat crow. I just feel like if you're going to let go John Morton, you didn't trust Dan Campbell as a play caller, you're not going to instill any confidence in anybody outside the organization by hiring David Blau. That's just my opinion. Trim, they should get a tight end in the draft or free agent. Yeah, man, I agree. Tight end needs to come into play. What up, Detroit Sports Talk? How you doing, buddy? Good to see you. Welcome to the chat. I'm a big Caden Proctor fan, he says. I like that. Massive offensive tackle, University of Alabama. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I can get down with that. 6'7", 366, surprising athleticism. That's okay. I'm sorry, I just had to refamiliarize it. That's the guy that would line up in the tight end position or the Wildcat sometimes for him. So very athletic. That would be great. I love that idea. And I think the Lions are in the market for a tackle for sure with the Taylor Decker retirement. So I love that idea. You guys are rolling with the comments. I appreciate you so much. If I miss anything, I really apologize. You guys are blowing it up tonight. I appreciate you. We're going to go well over an hour because I don't want to leave. So we're going to be here for a little bit. Appreciate you guys. Mills says, quite honestly, I feel I'll be better able to answer that question about my confidence level after hearing Brad Holmes speak. That's right. Thursday, we'll be on the lookout for that. Trim's been a Lions fan for over 30 years. I have no real reason to get too excited about a Super Bowl. That's what I want, Trim. I want the excitement back. It's kind of gone away, and that's wishful thinking as a Lions fan. I know that. That's not speaking as like a Lions media member or like part of the organization, but that's not what I'm here for, man. Johnny Herman says, I really don't believe Harbaugh will settle for anything less than head coach. I agree. He's not coming in here as like the coordinator or anything, or like a offensive assistant. Theo says, now time for a big splash to use the talent we have amassed. That's kind of, bear with me, dry throat. That's why I want them to make some sort of move. Make the right tweaks. It doesn't have to be an F them pick situation, but their talent level right now is so good that they can't waste this roster. Frazier, the decent backup. I like Miles Frazier. And again, he was injured for most of this season, so he didn't get a lot of the early year reps to maybe see what he really has. So this will be a big offseason for him. Going back to Don't Know Grit's comment, if he comes in next year and lights the world on fire as a guard, then maybe that does open up some opportunities. I mean, they'll know better. They'll know exactly what they're going to do as they get towards OTAs. But I think the better play would be to add veteran center right now. Jill says, I think they can. They have the players that play for one another. The players that have been good will stay. No diva team. They really do, Jill. And I don't want them to necessarily add a locker room issue, but I want them to be okay with thinking outside of the grit box. Guys that really could make a difference for some of these units. Michelle says, Lions fans are cautious. Confidence is earned with the moves they're willing to make after this year's story. Yeah. I think for me, like, I love the Lions. I will always love the Lions no matter what happens. They go 0-18 next year and I'll still be around. But like, I want it so bad, like all of you do. I don't want them to miss an opportunity. And I think they're right there, you know. I still feel like they're right there if the right moves are made. And I really feel like, again, I said this before, but if they don't make some of these moves, and if I hear in this press conference from Brad Holmes and more over the offseason that they're just willing to reset the deck, you know, that's going to be upsetting. If the Lions hire Brian Daboll, how would you feel, says Detroit Sports Talk? I would be fine with that. I like that idea, actually. There's an outside mind. Jill says, I'm too optimistic, too loyal of a fan. I'm there with you a lot of the time. I really am. John Herman says, I believe in the Lions' chances for next season. We have a great core. Just need to upgrade the O-line. We really do. Detroit Fan Man says, for that interior O-line, I'd like to see Mahogany and Miles battle for left guard, see Tate at the center, and grab a veteran right guard because Sewell plays left tackle, and a first-round OT from Utah will play right tackle. So we need some age in this young room. Yeah, man, I'm with you. Trim, the Pistons are rolling, buddy. I think they have a good, clear path to the Eastern Conference Finals. You know, the West obviously is a lot better conference this year compared to the East. So they have an opportunity. I really believe that. I do plan on getting some Pistons content out, regardless of the direction of the channel. So be on the lookout for that in the offseason as well. Don't Know says, I'm with you on Blau. I truly believe MCDC needs someone who will butt heads with him so we can get some real growth in the coach's room and on the field. I think that, and I think like just the trust of like, okay, we have a veteran offensive mind that knows what he's doing, can run the show on the offensive side of the football. Then Dan Campbell just truly becomes the CEO that he was before, that made this thing work so well. And yes, Ben Johnson was a huge part of that. Having him here as the offensive mind and the OC at that point, that was a difference maker. Losing him hurt the Lions. It did. I'm not hiding from that fact. But the truth is, I think Dan Campbell is much better as a CEO. So finding that offensive mind is going to be huge. Definitely need a good center for sure, Jill. Thank you, Millicent. Yes, please, as a reminder, hit that like button. It helps the channel out so much. I appreciate you guys. Thank you, Millicent, for letting everybody know in the chat. You guys are the best. 313 says, the reality is that the Lions will never win a Super Bowl as long as Goof is the quarterback. So there's the other side of it, right, guys? There's the Goff, the tractor, which is fine. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's many arguments to be made there, and you might be right. You might be right, because at this point, they haven't won the Super Bowl. They have not. Go Pistons, go Wings. That's right, Jill. Who can come in to mentor Shep? That's a good question, Millicent. Yeah, maybe adding some defensive assistance. Having the Lions system has a lot of former players in it. I think that's where they kind of grow and develop, is because they have guys that have actually played the game. So I could see them bringing in more of that on the defensive side to help Shep out. I think the reality check of the last few weeks hopefully opens up his idea of what the scheme can be next year. And honestly, Mills, this is my perspective. The defense is the defensive line, the front seven, they need more pieces. They need to continue to add, but I'm not overly concerned defensively. I'm really not. Yzerman does need to cook, although there's another organization not willing to pull the trigger a whole lot. So we'll see what Yzerman's cooking up as well. It's been a good day. It's been a good show, guys. I appreciate you so much. I really do. Thank you guys so much for always coming along on these Tuesdays, 9:30 p.m. Eastern. This will continue moving through the offseason. Every single Tuesday night, as long as I am available and healthy, I will be here at 9:30 p.m. doing a live. We are going to introduce a second live session. It will most likely be on Thursdays. Maybe this week. Let me put it their way, because we have a big press conference coming out this week from Brad Holmes. There's going to be a lot to talk about coming out of that press conference. So be on the lookout. I will put out a notification if we're going to go live again on Thursday. But the plan for the offseason will be a live Tuesday, a live on Thursday, both at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. Lions topics, and then hopefully a lot of other Detroit sports topics, and then just general topics. We're going to have a lot of fun this offseason with some fun generalities, some back and forth questions, some polls. We're going to get into a little bit of everything. Favorite TV shows, favorite color, favorite foods. Man, we're going to get into all of it. There's no end. Detroit Fairman says, is Shep insightful enough to adjust his staff? I'm just still a Casey Rogers scheme hater. Yeah, again, let's let a couple days play out, Detroit fan, man. I think we're going to hear a couple more changes internally, and I think we'll kind of revisit that. Appreciate you, Don't Know Grit. Same to you, man. And again, if anybody has not already, go check out at Don't Know Grit. Looks like on YouTube, but I catch them all the time on TikTok, and I think you do an amazing job there, my man. You really do. Daily content, great news, notes, and updates, mid-game updates, which I really enjoy. Really appreciate your work, brother. As a matter of fact, if you're still in the chat, Don't Know Grit, if you would like, I would love to have you as a guest on one of our future live shows. If you are ever around on a Tuesday or Thursday night coming up sometime soon, let me know if your schedule ever allows for that. I'd love and be honored if you would come on the show. I'm thinking Zach Wierenski's coming home, says Trim. A high-output offense working efficiently is also a good ingredient to defensive function. You're right, Theo. That's a great point. Let's put that up there. You are correct. Lions stay on the field longer, helps your defense. It all full circle, right? It's a circle, not a square. Jill says, hope I can catch you more often. Always love being here. Jill, I always love having you. I appreciate you. You are a member, a subscriber to the Facebook side of Johnny Gaz Sports. She's a part of the group over there. Obviously, subscribing is free here on YouTube, and I'll always have free content for you, but I do come out with membership-only content, both on YouTube as a member and then subscriber on Facebook. Personalized content just for you guys. Jill is a part of that group, and I appreciate you, Jill. Michelle says, then bring back NFL Mountain. Ooh, only Michelle knows, only a select few know about NFL Mountain. I used to put out a long-form video. We were talking about doing long forms for members only that covered the entire NFL, and I would rank the teams as far as like their playoff possibilities. We did that all last year. I didn't do it this year, but maybe we could reintroduce that. We should bring back NFL Mountain. I like that idea. Don't Know Grit, it would be an honor. Well, I would love to have you. I'll tell you what, I will contact you through TikTok chat, and we will figure out a date and time that would work for all of us. I think it would be great. I'd love to have you. I appreciate that, and I appreciate what you do. Go Lions, buddy. 313 says, what is your opinion of Aiden Hutchinson? He only had 3 sacks in the last 9 games of the season. Number 2 pick in the draft. He's a bust over the course of 4 years compared to Will Anderson. Bust is strong. That's so strong. That's really harsh. I think you got as much out of Aiden Hutchinson as you could get this year, considering a broken leg the year before. Considering they did not add they really didn't add any talent outside of the draft pick across that defensive line. The back end of the defense is hurting. The scheme might hurt Aiden Hutchinson a little bit. Only having 3 sacks the last 3 games of the season, I go back to what I just said. And and I'm not saying you didn't watch the game 3-1-3. This is not I'm not pointing the finger at you with this. But if you really watch the game, if you watch him play for play, okay, and then you go and do the same thing with Will Anderson. Statistically, Will Anderson is trumping Hayden Hutchinson this year. There's no doubt about that. You can't argue that. But the play for play energy, not taking a play off, Aiden Hutchinson is on the field more often than Will Anderson. He's impacting more of the rushing plays than Will Anderson. So I love Will Anderson. I would take him on our team in a heartbeat. That would be amazing to have Hutch and Anderson, and that's really what the Texans are doing right now between their two pass rushers. That's what we want here in Detroit. But let's not confuse what Will Anderson was doing with him being leaps and bounds above Aiden Hutchinson. Statistically, he is better this year. That team is playing better this year defensively. But I would never in a million years call Aiden Hutchinson a bust. No way. I think the leg injury slowed Hutch a little bit, and we'll get over 10 sacks next. For sure he's double-digit sacks next year. I would say he's probably pushing 20 sacks next year. And I would have told you, without his injury, he might have been up there with Myles Garrett this season. Again, that's all wishful thinking and playing it in a place where it didn't go. But let's not talk about Aiden Hutchinson as a bust. That's a really big overstatement, in my opinion. Yes, trim. I mean, a lot of players in his stature get doubled a lot. He's doubled all the time. He fights through it. Again, he's energy, effort, motor, every single play without fail. There is no play off for him. It doesn't exist. And it exists for every other superstar player, or they take more plays off. Don't know Grit says, in my opinion, Hutch was a victim of the scheme. Why was he dropping into coverage on third down so often? That was awful early on. There was a problem week one, right? We tried to get cute instead of playing strength of our best linemen. Thank you for bringing him back up. That's a bad memory in week one, that loss to Green Bay. Remember, you're right. They were dropping him back into coverage. That was crazy. I think they trust his athleticism, but that's not the way they should handle the defense. There you go, Casey Rogers. You're right, fan man. That's it. Theo says, Hutch's numbers were affected by lack of support from the rest of the line. That's it. Scheme against Hutch was chip blocks along with double teams. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the other inefficiencies across their defense hurt him so much. The argument on the other side is like, well, Myles Garrett, it's not like his defense is leaps and bounds, But I go back to the effort plays that Hutch makes that other guys just don't. You're saying Casey Rogers, Nagy? First of all, welcome to the chat. Appreciate you. You're saying Casey Rogers should be done now? But yeah, guys, we're an hour 21. I usually go an hour, but you guys, we're blowing up chat today, so I'm having fun with you guys, and I'll always ride it out with you as long as you guys are having fun as well. We can expand the time frame of these lives if that's really what we want to do. Yeah, I mean, he could be next on the list. I think if you're talking about some minor changes they can make defensively that will help Shep, maybe, again, as have been said here a couple times by Detroit Fan Man, it'll be their fifth defensive line coach in 5 years or fourth in 5 years. So it's a weird turnover, but I think it might be necessary. And that's it, Millicent. But you could have said Casey Rogers would have been that thing, and it wasn't it. So who's it going to be? No, don't stop, Detroit Fan Man. No worries at all, brother. I love it. I appreciate your passion. I love that you're in the chat and you're bringing good stuff. So that's more important. I appreciate you. Let's cut it right there, guys. Let's cut it right there. It's been a weird season for the Lions. It really has. 9-8 again wasn't what we expected. It's not what I expected. I had them at 12-5 when I projected this season. When I looked at the schedule, I looked at the roster, and obviously that was week one or before week one at that time in the offseason. There was a lot of hope and optimism. And there's still a lot of hope and optimism, and you should hold on to that. The core of this roster is still there. Jared Goff, whether you like him, you hate him, I think he can win for this team. I think he can win with the roster they have built, and with the right offensive mind, the retool of this offensive line, he can be the guy to bring you a Super Bowl. We know the Lions can still draft. And maybe the overall picture of draft, develop, and reward is starting to be questioned, but you can't question the first part of that is the Lions still have been able to draft very, very well, and you have to trust that this year they can do the same. Some cap maneuvering is in the cards, and if they're able to get some cap space back, they can then start to make some outside maneuvers, not only for help on this roster, but for help for the entire organization and to get them to the ultimate goal, which is to win a Super Bowl. And I want to see them do that in 2026. I'm sure you guys do as well. And I'm going to be here to talk that through all offseason long on Johnny Gaz Sports. Again, if you haven't already, hit the like button, subscribe to me here on YouTube for all that free Lions content. We're going to have so much good stuff coming up in the offseason. I am across all of your social networks, no matter where you're at, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, X, whatever you call it, Instagram, I am there. Look up at Johnny Gaz, and you can find me for some fun Lions and sports content. Yeah, Robert, the plan is to do Thursdays. I haven't introduced it yet, and we may go live this Thursday. Again, I will put out a notification through Johnny Gaz Sports on YouTube and Facebook if we go live this week Thursday, but the plan is to do Tuesdays and Thursdays at 9:30 p.m. Eastern through the offseason. Appreciate you, Robert. I really do. Really do. Jill says, Hutch is always giving us his all and may not always be sacks, but he has a lot of quarterback hurries. He's also double-teamed a lot, so nope, Hutch is not a bust. I'm with you, Jill. We're together. We're in lockstep. In Goff's restructure, we trust that. That's the best point of the day. We got to have it. We got to have it. Yeah, buddy. Everyone have a great night. Trim, thank you so much for always being involved, for always making sure the chat is going strong. I appreciate you guys. Yeah, Robert, I'm open this Thursday, but I will keep you posted, my man. Appreciate you, John Herman. We'll give you one more. 313 says, why does Hutch get a pass for not getting sacks, but Garrett gets 23 sacks with no help on his other side? No other team in the annals of NFL history cried for help like our fan base does. I think our fan base has been subjected to a lot in its history. I'm not saying that to cry for Lions fans in general, but I think there's been a lot through the history that you could point to where I think would tell you why Lions fans are the way they are the way I am. Myles Garrett is a next level edge defender, and he is certainly the guy that you could point to and say, well, he beats double teams all the time. And you're exactly right. He does. He is a sack machine, and he may be a better sacker of the quarterback than Aiden Hutchinson is right now. But I don't think that makes Myles Garrett a better player, more effective within his defense. And to go back to your first point, it certainly doesn't make Aiden Hutchinson a bust. So I just think that when we're looking at the offseason and what the Lions need to do, I just think Aiden Hutchinson is the very last thing in your concern bucket. That's the last thing we need to pull out of our bucket and say, let's toy with that. Appreciate you, Theo. Let's go Lions. Appreciate you guys. Jill, yeah, but Myles did not have a broken leg the way Hutchinson. You're right. I mean, that's something. I mean, we got to look into that recovery. But I mean, again, and I appreciate it. 313. This is not me arguing with you or saying you're wrong or it's a bad take. I've heard that argument. People wanted more out of Hutch at certain points of this season, and I have said that even at points. But I think we need to look at the big picture, and we'll continue to do so. And we'll see if the Lions will make those necessary changes to make Hutch a more effective player in 2026. I appreciate you guys. Everyone have a fantastic night. Thank you for subscribing. 313, you're the man. Again, come back. Keep firing those questions. Keep bringing that hot take. I love it. I love it, love it, love it. Have a fantastic night. Oh, don't know. Great. You're the man. I appreciate you. I'll have to follow through every platform. Thank you, brother. Thank you, man. And when we get you on the show, I'm going to hit you up in TikTok. We're going to get you on the show on an upcoming show here. So be on the lookout for that. We're gonna talk your glory and let everybody know where they can find all your great work. You too, Millicent. And again, thank you for the dono earlier. I appreciate you. And one more time before you go, Millicent, we got to get you one of these. Appreciate you so much. I really do. You guys take it easy. Do something kind for you don't know more than anything else. I always say take care of yourself. Everything starts right up here. You can't take care of the ones around you if you don't take care of yourself. I'd love to see you guys on future episodes. Have a fantastic night. Go Lions.